Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Friday, March 22nd. I'm Jonathan Ahl. Damon Davis has recorded hip-hop tracks and directed a documentary about the Ferguson Uprising. His latest work is a science fiction opera rooted in the Black experience.
It's Black music. It's Black American music over the last 200 years. The genre doesn't matter. Classical music is a genre, but opera is a container for storytelling. It's storytelling through music.
St. Louis Public Radio's Jeremy Goodwin has the story that's coming up on The Gateway. A months-long battle to change the Black history and Black literature courses in the Francis Howell School District ended last night when the school board voted in favor of revised curricula. As St. Louis Public Radio's Chad Davis reports, some parents say while the classes are similar, they didn't need to change.
The board voted in December to pull the Black history and Black literature courses after objecting to social justice standards by the Southern Poverty Law Center. The board president and superintendent then announced the classes would return but be politically neutral. The new curricula keeps much of the Black literature course the same. The Black history course now takes a chronological approach from ancient Africa to the present. Harry Harris is a Francis Howell parent. He says he's pleased with the curricula, but says the classes didn't need to change.
Students were happy with the classes. Parents were happy with the classes. We've heard nothing but positive feedback on them, so we shouldn't have been to this point.
The new curricula goes into effect during the fall semester. I'm Chad Davis, St. Louis Public Radio.
Doctors and healthcare workers in St. Louis say providing mothers with pregnancy care earlier and more consistently is essential to reducing the state's high rate of maternal and infant deaths. Around 6 infants per every 1,000 born dies in Missouri, and more than 30 Missourians per every 100,000 people dies during pregnancy or within a year of giving birth. At a panel convened Thursday by the city's Department of Health, Washington University OBGYN Department Chair Dr. Daneo Cabele said women need more mental and emotional support as well as medical care.
It doesn't matter if your doctor is empathetic. If the person who answered the phone and checked you into the hospital or the nurse who is laboring with you is not.
Panelists advocated for increasing the use of doulas and midwives and integrating them into existing clinical settings. The Gateway Arch National Park will receive $17 million in additional funding for upgrades to the historic old courthouse building. St. Louis Public Radio's Lucretia Wembley has more.
The historic building where former slaves Dred and Harriet Scott sued for their freedom in downtown St. Louis will receive interior and exterior upgrades with the $17 million. The funding comes from the Great American Outdoors Act, a law from the Trump administration that supports recreational access on public lands. U.S. Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland visited St. Louis on Thursday and talked about the ongoing renovations.
The old courthouse will have improved accessibility that will allow increased visitation to this historic place and new exhibits that will tell an even clearer story of the Dred Scott case and its impacts on American history.
The courthouse is expected to reopen sometime next year. I'm Lucretia Wembley, St. Louis Public Radio.
Congressional leaders left out a measure compensating people for radioactive waste exposure from a must-pass government funding bill. Members of the Missouri delegation wanted to include the Radioactive Exposure Compensation Act in a government funding bill that needs to pass by today. Senator Josh Hawley's bill would, among other things, expand the program to St. Louis area residents who are sickened by radioactive waste exposure. GOP Congresswoman Ann Wagner said yesterday on the House floor that Congress must act.
I am outraged. Senate and House negotiators left this urgently needed legislation out of the spending package. Mr. Speaker, time is of the essence.
Hawley said in a statement that the House should, quote, stop screwing around with Missouri and pass his bill. The man who led St. Louis University through the COVID-19 pandemic and the aftermath of the deaths of George Floyd and Michael Brown will leave the post next year. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman has more on the announcement from Fred Postello.
When he took over as president in 2014, Postello was the first layperson to lead SLU, which was founded by Jesuits in 1818. Under his leadership, the school reached a record enrollment of more than 15,000 students this year. More than 20% are international students. Pestello also led SLU's largest fundraising effort and grew its endowment by nearly 90%. He says he knew walking in the door that he would not be able to accomplish all his goals.
The people I work with probably wish I wasn't quite so ambitious and pushing them so hard to move so fast and so far, but that's how organizations move forward.
The university will conduct a national search for Pestello's replacement. I'm Rachel Lippman, St. Louis Public Radio.
I'm St. Louis Public Radio Broadcast Operations Manager Wayne Pratt, asking you to take a moment to support the Gateway by giving at stlpr.org. I was the host of this weekday extravaganza for years. We ask ourselves a few questions when putting it together. How many stories have our reporters filed? What else is going on that is relevant to listeners? Is there anything quirky going on that we should share? The result is a clear, concise, and entertaining podcast to get your day started. We can't do it without your support. Give now at stlpr.org.
Damon Davis has worked in many art forms, including sculpture, painting, and film. His latest work is a multi-genre opera inspired by Afrofuturism. Davis developed it with an experimental classical ensemble, Alarm Will Sound, and they'll soon release it as a podcast series. Tonight they'll perform a 20-minute excerpt as part of a night of new music at Kirkwood Performing Arts Center. Next week they'll take the program to Carnegie Hall. Davis says his piece takes elements from white European operas, but is about the black experience.
It's black music. It's black American music over the last 200 years. I am soldering it to classical music to a degree, bringing those classical instruments into rap, trap, soul, funk, gospel, house. The genre doesn't matter. Classical music is a genre, but opera is a container for storytelling. It's storytelling through music.
Take me to the moon with you.
It's a black rap space opera. At the core of it is a child protagonist that astral projects into sleep, and he's searching the cosmos for a cure for a terminal ailment that his father has. And so you're watching him just, the dream is just a portal to another reality.
Somehow, somewhere, forgot my place. But I swear that I'm from outer space. I'm not from here. I'm not from here. I'm not from here.
The idea of the other is the thing that science fiction allows you to do and crack through things that in normal life people have trained themselves to ignore or say that this is just the way things are, or this is, you know what I'm saying? But science fiction allows you, that in horror, allow you to speak to, I guess, social ills, political ideology, and just basic human nature. The black struggle is one that's constantly used as a springboard for writers to either examine themselves or examine how the world treats them if they black people. The Neptune is the planet of music. And so, yeah, he's there. Imagine a world where the tree is music, is growing out of it. And there are physical embodiments of music inside of the landscape, whether it's the animals or it's like clouds, but they are sound, they are vibration. And you listening to the narrator, which is me, tell you this memory back from when he first experiences this as a child.
Do you know what happens when you put rhythm and vibration together? What? Music.
In the middle of the cloud, a bright yellow hue with stripes of green, purple, and red. The colors seem to swim in the center of the cloud to a rhythm all their own.
One thing that I love about classical music is strings and brass. And what they can do to emotionally, like how you could be smiling and the right set of chords can have somebody crying within milliseconds. concept album. This is an album, and I'm gonna figure out the rules to this game and not infiltrate them, but pull them over to where I'm at.
That was Damon Davis, and excerpts from the podcast he recorded with Alarm Will Sound. You also heard vocalists Rockwell Knuckles and Aloha Michaud. St. Louis Public Radio's Jeremy Goodwin produced that report. It was edited by our David Cazares. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a member-supported service of the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. Today's episode produced by Aula Kuziz. I'm Jonathan Aul, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.